Record. Okay, we are now recording. So we are now in a Senate meeting. We're going to start with the Deputy Speaker calling roll whenever she is ready. Isha, be sure to unmute.
Yeah. Okay. Senator Abdul Rahman.
Here.
Senator Aslam. Senator De Leon.
Here.
Senator Fang.
Here.
Senator Gorka.
Here.
Senator Krager.
Here.
Senator Liverpool.
Here.
Senator Liu.
Here.
Senator Murphy.
Here.
Senator Rafiq. Senator Rogers. Senator Sahin.
Here.
Senator Sharath Chandra. Senator Thomas.
Here.
Senator Tome.
I think Leah's here.
Yeah, I can see her.
Here, sorry.
Senator Tran.
Here.
Senator Tulloch.
Here.
Okay.
Great. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me just stop sharing my screen for 1 second. I need to do something quickly. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to return to sharing my screen. Sorry about that. For the Genesee, I think that everyone should mute themselves except me because last time it was kind of chaotic. If people are fine with that, or we could just not do it. But I'm a fan of it, so I'm down. So I'm gonna do it, and everyone can sing along on mute. So we're gonna sing the Genesee. I have the words right here. Okay. Full many fair and famous dreams beneath the sun there be, yet more to us than any seems our own dear Genesee. We love her banks and stately falls, for to our minds they bring our dear old alma mater's halls where sweetest memories cling. As flows the river gathering force along her steadfast way, may we along life's devious course grow stronger day by day, and may our hearts where'er we roam forever loyal be to our beloved college home beside the Genesee. Thanks, Typhoon, for your comment. Is there any point for open forum? Does anybody have anything for open forum? Seeing none.
I do.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say to everybody that I hope everyone's and their families taking care of themselves and staying at home and practicing safe social distance. So just wanted to wish everybody well.
Great, I agree. Anyone have any discussion about that or anything else for open forum? Great, seeing none. Just to clarify, I was told last week that I wasn't waiting long enough because Zoom has a bit of a delay, so I'm going to try to wait a bit longer after asking if anyone has anything else, just to make sure that if people do, they have enough time to get that in. But remember to unmute yourself if you do want to speak up. Having said that, is there anything else for open forum? Seeing none, we're going to move into old business, starting with Victoria and Grace. Let's do Victoria.
Hi, guys. Okay, so Grace and I are working on a survey to draft a list of questions to post to the student body about the housing lottery, along with it coinciding with registration and how they feel about that, along with their feelings and all general sentiment about moving into quarantine spaces and how residence halls are going to look like in the fall. So if you have any general questions relating to that broad topic, please email either Grace or I, or you could even send them in the Senator group chat so we can just quickly add it to our list of already drafted questions.
Sounds good. Senator Tome?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you're aware of this, but the Housing Lottery Task Force does exist, which Senator Sahin and I see he put himself on the speakers list. I probably wanted to bring that up too, which we both sit on, and I think that would be a really useful group to reach out to see whether they're planning to do something similar. Laurel, she is the chair of the task force, and other people like Laura sit on that, and people from financial aid, so I think that could be really valuable. I yield.
Senator Sahin?
Yeah, I just first of all wanted to know about some of the concerns with the housing lottery this year. And then, yeah, at the same time, the housing lottery task force right now postponed indefinitely. I sent an email, have not received a response yet. I'll send a follow-up, but could you speak, Victoria, a little bit about the concerns for this year's housing lottery?
Victoria, you can.
Oh, yeah, I yield to you, Victoria.
Thank you. Yeah, so yes, I'm aware of the housing lottery task force. Class council actually appointed Leah as well. So we know about that valuable resource. So it's more about the availability and the accessibility of the information that people need in order to register for the lottery and things like that. Because everyone is everywhere in the world, just making sure that the fact that we are strictly online moving forward with this housing situation, just making sure that everyone feels like they have the resources that they need. And if they feel that the university did a good job of publicizing that information, yeah, just mostly talking about accessibility of information. And yes, we are aware of the Housing Lottery Task Force.
Okay, and then my last question was, do you need Duo or VPN access to be able to register for, okay.
You do need VPN, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's slightly more concerning, although I'm Take 5, so at least I don't have to register next year, but yeah, for other students, that is concerning. I yield.
President Holtz? Jamal?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. So I think two things to consider with the survey is to also consider how would folks who are international will be able to take the survey who can't access Google Forms in their countries. So also create another option for people who don't have access to that. One of the things we're doing with the flag committee is that we have an email set aside for people who can't fill out the survey through a Google form, that they can email responses to that particular email. So if you want to open your email up to that and spam your email box, feel free to. I think you should have something where it can access across international platforms. The other thing, and I think kudos to the elections team for kind of doing this, is the number of students that were enrolled in Duo Mobile and VPN prior to the elections, where there was a good amount of students who weren't enrolled. After the elections, that number went up. So there's more and more students now, thanks to the elections team, who are enrolled in VPN and Duo Mobile. So that will kind of help a lot with other processes at the university, such as you are a student, housing lottery, and the registration process. So big ups to the election team on that.
Great. Yield?
I do.
Great. Senator DeLeo?
So yeah, Victoria just said, basically like explained what the whole project we're doing, but yeah, it's just a way to generate how we can just receive some feedback from students and how they feel. I didn't realize Google Form was like something that might be difficult, but if you guys have any other ideas on like ways to collect data or information from students, that'd be great. I yield.
Senator Sharath Chandra?
I was just gonna ask, are you guys gonna collect data from people or opinions from people before the housing lottery happens or after?
They're not. Do you want to yield to maybe Victoria?
Yeah, I'll yield to Victoria.
We're trying to. So we have a list of questions that we're ready to put into like a formal survey. Also, thank you, Jamal, for the separate email suggestion. But yeah, we are trying to get that out before the housing lottery. There's about 4 days, but still even after, I think that it's important to just know how people feel about it, regardless of whether or not we can necessarily change it in this specific time. But yeah.
Okay, cool. I was just gonna suggest, I don't know if SurveyMonkey is also blocked in other countries. That might be a way to get around Google Forms. But I yield.
Great. Is there any other discussion for this senator update? Seeing none, I think. Is there any other senator update? Wait, hold on. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to committee updates, starting with academics. Ian?
Yeah, so that's just kind of a collection of all the things that we're wrapping up for the semester. I was going to do this update like right after spring break, but obviously that didn't happen. So resolution 52 and 54 have been fully implemented to the furthest extent possible. Huge shout out to those who worked on it those two resolutions 2 years ago, especially Typhoon. And it's great that those are now pretty much done. Obviously, like whomever is chair of academic affairs next year needs to continue to follow up to make sure everything is being implemented smoothly on the administration end. My committee is meeting Tuesday at 6 p.m., which is our normal time, this Tuesday to kind of just have a wrap-up meeting to talk about the future of ongoing projects, as well as like the transition process for, the committee and whatnot. The thing that I did want to, the other update is that we're working with the IT registrar and CCAS to sponsor a UR student webinar to basically walk through the process of registering for classes, including a demo and a Q&A. So it'll basically be kind of like what we had intended for the event that was going to be in Hearst Lounge that we had been planning, but it's going to be instead online. And so this is something that's still being in the planning stages, and we hopefully will have more information very soon. But that's going to be like very quick turnaround. So it's going to be planned this week. So then the other thing that I did want to have a conversation about in my committee tomorrow is whether or not to cancel this year's Essay Professor of the Year awards. So the Undergrad Research Expo is still happening, but they canceled the awards portion of it. So that's the expo is where we usually present the Professor of the Year awards. So I'm just going to have a talk about that in my committee tomorrow and decide whether or not to cancel them for this year. That's all.
Great. Is there any discussion for academics? Seeing none, I think. Okay. We're going to move to ARC. Genesis. Genesis, unmute yourself.
Nothing besides what's there.
Great. Is there any discussion for ARC? Seeing none, we're going to move to SAC. Is Rita here? I don't think Rita's here. Does someone from SAC, maybe Eden or Ian, want to fill us in? Budgeting still ongoing. Anything else, Eden?
We meet again tomorrow to keep going with budgeting, so it should be finished by, I think, the end of this week.
Okay. Is there any discussion for SAC? Seeing none. Campus services put no updates on there. I don't think that they have any.
Nope. No further updates.
Sounds good. Is there any discussion?
Who's
for
playing a
campus services?
game? Can someone turn that game off, whoever's playing it?
Huh. I'm not hearing it, but okay.
Yeah, actually, I hear it too. I know what you're talking about.
Huh. Okay. Is there any discussion for campus services? Seeing none, we're going to move
Alexander, I was just wondering if you reached out to Cam about any of the initiatives that were going to happen, like that we talked about during the Dining Service Advisory Board. Are they going to happen next semester, or are they being pushed back? Do you have any idea?
Yield to Alexander, I assume. Alexander, you can go.
I can certainly find out. There are still so many questions as to whether or not we will be in person or virtual for next semester, or what that will look like, that I think Cam is just concerned with, like, the next couple months and figuring out the summer. But I can certainly find out if the fall is also on his radar, which I assume it probably is. And assuming everything does resolve in a timely manner, I would assume he would still be able to roll out those changes, but I can certainly find out.
Got it. Thank you so much. I
Great.
yield to the speaker.
Is there any other discussion for campus services? Seeing none, we're going to move to student life. Leah?
Yeah, so the only real update I really have is that Jamal and Marie, some other senators, and I met with financial aid. Well, had a Zoom call with financial aid. We did not meet in person. But yeah, so we did talk through some ideas, feedback, and something that I'm really excited about is establishing, they used to have something called financial aid ambassadors, and it sounded like that would be something that we could do again. So something that I would like to see, something similar, like a financial aid student advisory board. I think the financial aid ambassadors used to be something really similar. So that's something that we'll hopefully be looking into next semester. I think some of the other senators, if they want to know more about what they asked about, feel free to, but that's the only real update I have.
Great. Is there any discussion for student life? I think that's no. So moving on, ISAC, Justina?
Yeah, we're right now as a committee just collecting feedback about the diversity report and like the final report that administration releases about statistics regarding like faculty, staff, student body, whether undergrad or grad. And we're just gonna kind of have a discussion with Illinois, forwarding that feedback to see if we can like improve upon anything for next year, because she was open to the suggestion. And then also I'm planning on trying to schedule a meeting sometime this week with the vice president of equity and inclusion, because she's coming in July 1st, although I believe that she's already on campus. Either way, we're going to try to schedule a Zoom meeting. So that's something that we're looking forward to. Otherwise, no other updates.
Sorry, I was on mute. Is there any other discussion for ISAC? Seeing none, I think. We're going to move to exec updates. Jamal?
Hello. Give me a second. So updates I have. Commencement committee is starting this week on Wednesday. We did some pre-meetings today. Lily's on the committee as a student who's going to help keep the work going over the summer and into next year, and she'll be the staff to the committee, helping with logistical support. Genesis is also on the committee as well on behalf of student government and class council, and as class council chair. So those are your two student government leaders that'll be kind of helping a lot on the committee. The important thing is that we're going to be discussing a lot around feedback, trying to find ways to get feedback, but also to bring in ideas. So if folks have ideas on what they would like to see for a commencement of celebration for ASNE in particular, please send those to myself or Anne-Marie Algier or Lily, and we can bring all of that feedback to the committee. if you're a senior or if you're just a student who know best ways that we can communicate with students after graduation, please send some of those ideas our way. But the more feedback, the better, and we can talk through a lot of those things in the committee. In regards to, I met with Dean Runner last week. Two things. One, in regards to merit ambulance. Thanks, Chris, Senator Lou, for coming to that. Right now, we're putting together a cost analysis package to kind of figure out cost and how much ambulance will cost, from insurance to the purchase of the vehicle, the stuff that will be in the van, and everything else. The feedback and stuff that we collected, it was pretty good feedback. We got about 400 responses of people, from students, from doing many different types of outreach. A lot of the data and survey responses we got some good quotes from RAs and first year fellows and people who play a huge role, and or people who have reported students before. And Connor also helped out with some data in regards to bringing in from a conduct perspective. So it was a good soft proposal that we put together and presented to Dean Runner, and it was a good likely idea. So now we're just getting the cost analysis to figure out how we're going to pay for ambulance. So should hopefully have more feedback on that as it comes. The other part of that meeting with Dean Runner that I had with him was to discuss a bill that was passed 2-3 years ago. I know Senator Sahin, you brought this up before, and some of the stuff that we discussed early on in the year about them changing the handbook. Just to give an update on that committee, there was 2 years ago, there was a sign on the engineering quad that some students didn't like. I don't know exactly what the sign said, but the sign was removed down, and there was discussions about finding ways to honor Native American and tribal lands that were the Seneca land that was on this, that was a part of the university before it was a university. And administration is still fully on board with doing that. Where the ball dropped was that there was a student group, there was a group of students formed to kind of discuss ideas around what they wanted that recognition to look like. However, as the years went on and as they started rolling out a lot of the recommendations, some of the students were not involved anymore, and the ideas kind of dropped ball. And then when Dean Runner came in as the new, not when Dean Runner, but when Dean Burns assembled the committee, wanted to assemble another committee. There were no student representatives from the people who raised the original concerns. So now what they're in the process of doing is putting together a core group of people again, who actually will be here for a year or two to talk through ideas on what they wanted to see recognition looks like. So that's a good update from that. Leah, you already made the point, but I do want to say thank you to all the senators and for bringing those ideas and the questions and initiatives to Sam Viter. She wants to do stuff like that frequently. So if the Student Life Committee maybe can take charge on assembling a group that can meet with Sam Viter following next year, or who's ever in leadership, whatever. Flag Lounge, Hearst Lounge, Flag Committee update. The link that you see there is a survey. It isn't live yet, primarily because we're still trying to figure out how we're going to send it out. But it's live to you all. So if you want to fill it out, feel free to do so. Actually, or if you all have recommendations or feedback for those questions, feel free to send them to me. But the survey is pretty much live. What we're trying to figure out now is how to send it out and what's the best format to send it out. And for students who can't access the survey international, in different countries, then they can email flag_display@rochester.edu. The last update is just a podcast that I mentioned last week. I didn't put the link on the agenda, but that's the link if students want to hear a podcast about equity and inclusion during the pandemic at a college. So.
Great. Is there any discussion for all those exec updates? I will circle back to you, Leah. Don't worry. I missed that for Isaac, but yes, Senator Sahin.
First of all, thank you so much for the update. I just had one question. So there's going to be a core group of students moving forward for signage. What about for the handbook?
So the handbook is an easy fix. So part of the reason why I wasn't in the handbook for this year was primarily because the handbooks get printed months out to be ready by summertime. I want to say.
Okay.
I'm not sure where they are with making handbooks now, but I mentioned it to him. He was on board with it, but the problem is that the university is in a budget freeze right now, and all spending that was happening before, they're freezing literally everything. No new hires, no new spending or stuff like that. So he was going to get back to me in regards to the handbooks for next year, or even if they've been purchased or created yet. But it's definitely something that he was in favor of. But
Okay.
the core
Thank you
group
so
of
much.
students no problem. But the core group of students would be something that likely Dean Burns would charge. So I'll be having a conversation with him soon.
Okay. All right. I yield.
Are you fine with? I know you've been connected with some of those students. Are you fine with being that person who Dean Burns, because you'll be here next year too, who Dean Burns can kind of work with or probably be on that committee?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Gotcha.
All right. I yield.
Great. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? A senator? Senator Tome?
I yield to Connor.
All right, just a quick question for Jamal on data. Did Brendan or Kyle ever get back to you with more recent data on transports?
They did as recent as of this semester. No, I think that I think that Dean Runner was going to do that on his end to get that data on his end, but I only had data leading up to December of last year.
Cool. If not, I was just gonna send another email. But if we're covered, we're good.
Yeah, I think we're covered on data. Like he's pretty much sold.
Great.
And the proposal was pretty good. So.
Okay. Senator Tome?
I yield.
Great. Is there any other discussion for exec? Seeing none, we're going to circle back to ISAC because Leah had something to say that I missed. So Senator Tome.
I'm so sorry, but I actually do have a question. So, you all probably saw that we got an email that summer research, summer classes, so all on-campus experiences are canceled. I also heard from my professor that it looks like increasingly like we will not be having physical classes, like we'll be moving to online classes still in the fall from what I've heard. So one of my concerns is international students who are graduating and international students who are continuing their studies. For example, I am stuck in the US until the US gets better. I can't leave the country. I don't have family here, so I'm just wondering how it will look like for international students who cannot leave the country because of visa reasons and what they can do. Because when I first talked to Dean Burns, he talked about employing international students on campus for summer, but since that doesn't seem to be an option anymore, what will happen to that? Also, graduating students who can't return back home.
So do you yield to someone, question mark? Just...
If someone has an answer or knows who to ask for an answer, I would really appreciate that.
Anyone? Lily. So I'm assuming that Leah has yielded to Lily, so go ahead.
I don't have a good answer for what the school's doing, but I can tell you that there is still the possibility that we will be back in the fall. While that's definitely something they're preparing for, it's not something that's completely written off. Some of you know my dad works for the Department of Health for New York State, so that's something where he still thinks, and I've really honestly asked him, like, when do you think this is going to be over? And that's about, you'll know by May, like, kind of thing is what he keeps saying. So I think the aspect for the summer, I think that's a really good thing to bring up to admins, because there are a significant amount of people who cannot go back home, whether that be they're international or not. And I think the school can do something, so we'll bring that up.
Great. Is there any other discussion? Leah, do you yield?
I do.
Great. Is there any other discussion for ISAC? Seeing none, Jamal, anything for alumni, community engagement, or PR? That's a no. Having said that, oh, 2 participants raised hand. Typhoon, Senator Sahin, go ahead.
So for PR, I sent a request around a week and a half ago just because I think the link to our constitution no longer works from the essay website. Connor's also nodding his head, so he must be aware of that. Yeah, I was just wondering if there's a rough timeline of when that might be updated.
Yeah, so I mean, Micah, you may know this better than I do, but I know that a lot of tech stuff was put on backhand primarily to focus on election and get that stuff gathered together. But also, I believe that the process and the way it works is that the student who does our website updates, then those requests go directly to him.
I'm gonna butt in here. Ben actually doesn't. It's the there's another student, Dominique, who does the website updates. Ben does the stuff. And they also just hired the replacement for David South. The title is Application Administrator and Analyst. His name is Griffin. And so I think they're still onboarding him. Fred and I had our first meeting with him today about election stuff, but I think the focus has mainly been elections, but probably after that, there will be a little bit of time for them to do that, and then they'll want to focus on probably updating the website for applications for appointed positions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
yeah,
I'll follow
don't take away from elections right now, but afterwards, that sounds great.
We got 24 hours. I'll follow up with Laura though. Work with her.
Sounds good.
I yield.
I think someone else had their hand up, and I don't. Oh, Typhoon, do you want to yield to Lily?
I yield to Lily.
This is your update.
It's not my update.
Oh, you just had your hand raised. I don't know.
Oh, that must have been still raised from before.
Okay, sounds good. Typhoon, do you yield?
Yes.
Great. Is there any other discussion for that?
No. I have a quick update on the Career Center.
Yep, go ahead.
Forgot to raise my hand. So someone I know that works closely with Joseph Stani, and I work closely with him too. For anyone who has like career plans that have been affected by COVID, the Career Center is working on flexible funding for unpaid jobs/internships this coming fall for graduating seniors. So if it's something that you could benefit from, tell people who are either reaching out to you or yourselves to email Joe Testani explaining how funding could be helpful and encouraging his office to offer like the special funding. So he's trying to get like a gauge for what seniors might need. So and I've heard a few other like varying stories of where seniors are in the process. So if people have questions, just direct them towards him.
Great. Is there any discussion for that? Seeing none, I think we are going to move to ACJC. Connor, do you have any updates? Connor?
Yep, sorry to unmute myself. I'm using Talk, and that can be a bit of a rough time. But general updates on selections. We have our first round of selections. As all of you know, we decentralized it this year, so it's through Zoom meetings, and it's all recorded. So every justice has been going through all of the recordings in the past week. That being said, around 80% of our first round interviews over Zoom are done. Applications closed on the 1st of April. That's about all of it for selections round one. I'd say they're going pretty well. We have a similar number as last year. We're pretty happy with all the candidates, especially with the turnout given the circumstances. Even with the circumstances removed, we're still doing pretty well. That aside, thanks everyone who promoted on Facebook, put it out there. One of our questions in the the interview itself is, how do you learn about ACJC? And a lot of them have said, senators told us to reach out to you and to apply, that it might be interesting. So I just wanted to say thank you everyone so much, not just senators, but Jamal and Marie, Lily, all of you, thank you so much for really getting the word out even during this tough time. My second sort of question, update, whatever, has more to do with feedback or information on how you folks are handling academic honesty. within your courses, how your professors are handling it, if you have any questions, and if anything has really popped up for you. So I'm hoping to get, one or two people just to talk a little bit either in public or just to me in private. If you want to reach out, just to let me know what's going on and how you feel like academic honesty has changed, if at all. And so based on some of those responses, I'm going to talk to Greer Murphy, who's the academic honesty liaison, and we're going to try to get some general publicity updates, stuff like that out into the student body. That way we can make sure everyone is sort of aware what sort of the new rules are or what the old rules are, regardless. Because we want to make sure people don't, put themselves in stressful situations as a result of this and then do some academic dishonesty as a result. Which tends to be a lot of the background in a lot of our cases. So anything we can do proactively would be great. The third thing is that, which I didn't put on this update, is that we recently had a piece in the Campus Times recently came out about academic honesty online. So if anyone wants to signal boost that or put that out there or read it, that would also be a really big favor. Yield.
Great. Just for my own personal answer to Connor, I know that personally all of my exams have just been canceled and instead have become assignments of some sort. So I know that's a very common thing people are doing. But does anyone have any other discussion for Connor for ACJC? Anyone? Hold on. Seeing none, I think we're going to move to parliamentarian updates. I think this is going to start with Fred.
Yeah, so all the information is up there. The presidential debate video is online. So if you click the link, if you ever want to rewatch it, you can go to that link. And then if you haven't voted, there's the link to vote. And then the result will come out on April 8th and noon. And I don't know if Kamel's here.
Greetings.
Here? Yeah.
Is it for you? Okay, awesome. So I'll get sorry, I've been having a little bit of internet issues, but they're done. So we'll talk about the appeals bill project first. I hope to bring it to the Senate next week because that's the latest I can do it. And lots of you, or some of you, definitely help to take a look at this if you're interested in what's going on. Some feedback could be really good. I actually haven't updated the bill yet. That's why I hesitate, but I should probably do it soon. For the ACJC PPM project, it's pretty much done. Fred, that's you.
Yeah, it's done.
Review that shared governance proposal if you'd like. I'd really appreciate it. This last thing I actually think we should stop and discuss for a little bit. It won't be this Senate speaker selection, but I think it's important that, an experienced Senate and experienced members of the whole SA talk about how we might do this, because there's a lot of points of discussion I've brought up. Mike, I'll defer to you. Do you think this is worthwhile talking about? I definitely think so.
Yeah, I actually have forgotten to go back in and put my comments again, but I think the general overview is we're looking into systems of both having some sort of privacy in speaker selections. Obviously, the normal idea of executive session where you don't have electronics open is impossible, but some sort of privacy element, and we're looking into how secret ballot will work in this new system. So I think those are the two main issues in figuring those out. Having said that, before I go to Senators, Kamel, do you have anything else to add?
I'd like to hear what others have to say, for sure.
Cool. So that's the end of your updates?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any discussion? I saw Senator Sahin.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, for the speaker, what work do you do over the summer? Because I was just wondering, do we need to really try to hash all of this out and all of the problems by doing this, before the summer, or could we just do it in our first meeting, back in the fall? It might be the case that, as Lily was stating, that maybe we'll still need to do it over Zoom come the fall. But I just want to know if there if it is very critical to have the speaker selected before the summer. And I would yield to Micah on that if he would speak.
So I would say yes. A couple of examples are that they appoint some people hopefully before the end of the summer, before the end of this semester. So parliamentarian elections coordinator is the biggest one for fall elections. They also appoint a deputy speaker, which last year obviously didn't happen before the end of the semester, but that is something else that can happen theoretically. And they also are the way that Senate has a voice in the actual decision of who gets appointed for different, especially committee chairs. And then they also do things like plan essay training and appoint senators to committees. And they figure that out over the summer. So I would strongly suggest that that happens beforehand. There's nothing stopping you from delaying it, but I still want, you can't have Senate meet unless you have speaker selections. So you would have to have those first 2 meetings of that term. Your first thing be overruling the bylaws to put that off a week. And I think that that's kind of unproductive and you wouldn't really do anything else.
Okay.
So,
okay. To be fair, though, we would have to overrule the bylaws, whether we want to push forward with it or whether we want to delay it, because some part of the original process can't happen as it was intended. But I definitely understand or have a greater understanding of why the speaker is needed, especially before the summer. So thank you. I yield.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we're going to move to speaker updates. So the main update is that there are 2 more Senate meetings left after this one. Normally we would have speaker selection on the first Senate meeting after elections, but that's not happening this year to give more time to ACJC, ARC, and SAC for all their processes. So instead it's going to be on the 20th, but 2 more Senate meetings means that you have to propose any bylaws changes that you might want to do in this term next week in order for it to sit on the table for a week. So that's the main thing. Is there any discussion for my updates? 2 participants raised hand. Senator Sahin.
All right, sorry, I feel like I'm speaking on every single one. My question was, did the bill pass regarding speaker communications?
You should yield to Jamal.
Okay, I yield to Jamal.
Yes, it passed. I signed it.
Okay, great. I yield.
Is there any discussion? Someone want to yield to Connor maybe? Is that Kamel also wanting to talk maybe?
I forgot. Do I have privilege to discuss right now?
Well, not really, I'd say, unless it's like about the rules of how this is proceeding right now.
I can't. I'm going to raise my hand. Sorry.
Does someone want to yield to, now someone else is raising their hand. Oh, does someone want to yield to Connor or Kamel?
I yield to Connor.
Great.
Thanks. My question is mostly for Kamel on the shared governance stuff, so it's a little bit of a while back. Was there any discussion of sort of the smaller scale shared governance stuff, like working better together with faculty council or faculty senate?
So, I mean, I'm sorry, can I respond directly?
I'll yield to you, yeah. I guess can we have that sort of chain yield?
Ian, I assume you yield to Kamel.
Sorry about that. I've forgotten the rules.
Go ahead, Kamel.
Ironically. So I think that was my expectation when we went to the meeting, and it seemed like immediately, I mean, after like, let's say 10, 15 minutes, everyone jumped into the conversation of that shared governance body that spans the university. So that was what I remember and what my notes say. That was kind of the main point of discussion. Shared governance with the SEC, the Senate Executive Committee, can be achieved through a trans-university committee that includes, let's say, public safety, university administration, the Graduate Students Association, SA, et cetera, et cetera.
Great. Ian, do you have anything else you want to add, or Connor?
I yield to, unless Connor wants to talk.
We'll take that as a no. Seeing none, any other discussion?
I had something else to mention.
I yield to Kamel.
Thank you, Ian. Micah, has the bill been posted online? The approved bill Typhoon was just mentioning?
It has not yet been posted online. Working on it.
Awesome. Thank you.
I yield.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we are going to move to new business. Is there a motion? Senator Tulloch.
Motion to approve the Senate minutes from March 30th, 2020.
Is there a second on the motion? Senator Liu. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we're going to move into a vote by unanimous consent. Does anyone dissent from passing this motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. Is there a motion? Senator Tulloch again.
Motion to discuss a bill to establish a presidential advisory council in the executive branch.
Is there a second on the motion? Senator Tum. Is there discussion on the motion? If I had to guess, Jamal would want to discuss.
Yeah, I was trying to find the raise hand button.
Cool.
So yeah, I wanted to move forward with establishing the Presidential Advisory Council, a part of the SA structure. So last year when the idea came up, it started as an initiative that Anne-Marie and I wanted to accomplish and as a way to foster community, build relation, and bring and build a pipeline between the Student Association and the student body with bringing feedback. The focus of it was to establish a group of people who weren't necessarily full members of, I won't say full members, but who weren't necessarily elected or in the everyday structure of student government, but wanted to were involved leaders in their communities and were able to come to bring ideas and be blunt and open and honest about issues, initiatives, or stuff that arise on campus that we typically deal with within student government. So part of what we wanted to do was keep a structure of the Presidential Advisory Council going year after year. As what I've seen as a person who served as president and vice president, in my vice president capacity, we had a cabinet of about 10 people who we were able to meet with, talk with, and advise us on different issues. Now, what I see now is that it's become more decentralized to the point where everything falls on myself, Anne-Marie, or Lily to kind of make decisions on things that arise within the executive branch or things that arise within the student government that where we have to play a role in providing some sort of feedback on behalf of the students to the administration. What I saw as a Presidential Advisory Council this entire year was an opportunity to bring together an ad hoc group of students who were leaders in their communities, leaders in their student organization, presidents or vice presidents of organizations where they were able to represent their communities. And we wanted to target many different student groups and organizations. And we were able to discuss challenging issues. Conversations were at times tense and conversations were at times very fruitful. But over the course, what we've learned is that the conversations within those groups, we got the opportunity to learn a lot in the outside perspective. Different than what we were getting from people internally in SA. So this bill sets the structure of bringing together a focus group of students every semester, which is what, every year, which is what I wanted to establish in the bylaws. Within this executive PPMs, I wanted to lay out just a framework on how we envisioned the Presidential Advisory Council for this year. However, as you all know, with any president that comes in, they can have the opportunity to establish what the advisory council looks like. but the opportunity to have a focus group of students is there. And for some people may say, well, this only been around a year. We don't know if it's working, right? And I think my answer to that is that what we do know is it does work. We spent the year meeting with this group. We had about 7 different meetings. And what we do know is that we've created stuff within student government and pushed forward initiatives where we had no idea where it was going, or no data or backing from the people who were part of these committees, right? This is an opportunity where we brought real feedback, where we saw real change because of this, because of Presidential Advisory Council. It had real outcome. People started serving on committees within the university. People started serving on project teams who were on the PAC and playing more essential roles outside of the university and getting connected to those opportunities to gauge feedback. So that's why we wanted to establish this and keep this going. Yeah. Any
Great.
questions?
Senator Tome.
Thank you so much for explaining what this is about. Obviously, I endorsed that bill, and I'm really happy to see that we want to continue that, but I just had 2 questions before that. So my first question is, not everyone from the PAC endorsed the bill. Is that because they did not believe that it should continue that way, or because they didn't get back to you in time?
Yeah.
And should I ask my second question first, or answer it? I yield to you, Jamal, first. Sorry.
So we had there was a total of 15 people on the council. We had 9 or 8 people endorse. So we sent it out to the final bill out to well, at least a work in progress bill out to the entire council early last week. Not everyone responded, but for the most part, the people who did respond, they also said they wanted to endorse. Some people said that they wanted to submit a quote. So that's what we did. So it wasn't, nobody didn't respond because they didn't support it, but primarily I didn't get any of that feedback. Most of the 8 people who did respond out of the 15, they gave good feedback and wanted to keep it going.
Okay, cool. Thank you. My second question is, so something that I've heard a little bit about from other students about feedback, and some feedback I had myself, is the composition of the PAC. And I know that there are a lot of great people on there that are really involved and engaged on campus, but that it is not like specific representation where you have one specific rep for varsity athletes, for example, one specific rep for, I don't know, the Pan-Atlantic community, one specific rep for something else. So something that I kind of see lacking on there is the composition, because it is really big right now and is left kind of to each year's president or exec to figure out, and I would really love to see some more specific composition. Is that something you've thought about?
Yeah, so I mean, what we wanted to do is get a representative amount of students who came from. What we know is that it's nearly impossible to get people who represent every group on campus, right? But what we wanted to try to achieve is that we wanted to get people who was cross sectors, right? People who may have played a varsity sport but also been a part of a fraternity or sorority, or someone who may have been a part of a cultural organization and also play a club sport. And part of what we wanted to do was when we asked on the application was, what organizations have you been a part of or are you currently a part of? Primarily because there's people who play active roles in former organizations as president and vice president, and there's people who play roles in current organizations but what we know is that whether they played a high role or just a member of an organization, is that the least that they have is a perspective of that organization. So what we didn't necessarily want to conform and mandate that you reach out to that you have this group of people, this group of people, this group of people, because the problem is that it's going to be hard to get representation from literally every organization or every group on campus. But what I said was included, but not limited to, was all the organizations that we at least accomplished on the PAC this year. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I yield.
Senator Sahin? Oh, wait, actually, before Senator Sahin goes, I just want to remind people that this is a bylaws update, so it will have to sit on the table for a week. So eventually, when discussion dies down, someone can motion to table this for a week. Senator Sahin, you have the floor.
Yeah, actually that leads into my question. So right now it's phrased as a motion to discuss. So are we going to table the motion to discuss? Because that,
Yes,
okay.
that's what I would suggest.
Okay, tabling the motion to discuss and not like a motion to consider, a motion to approve.
I did not want a motion to approve. That I don't think is good. I think motion to discuss is fine, but
Okay. I mean, you know what? It's not worth it. I just want to make sure that was considered. The phrasing sounds like it was. I yield.
is there any discussion? I would note that Lily still wants to talk. Oh, 2 participants raised hand. Sorry, when 2 participants raise their hand at the same time, I can't tell who they are. President Holtz.
Yeah, I was also, I don't know who changed that on the agenda to motion to discuss, because I thought once you approve something, it sits on the table and then you come back and vote on it again. But I'm not sure about that. Do you have any clarity on that, Camille or Micah?
Yeah, so it was written. Wait. All right, I think it's me. It was written originally as motion to approve, I think, which I thought was bad. So it was changed to motion to discuss. I understand motion to consider would also be fine, but I think either is fine. But I think motion to approve is a bad idea for something that has to sit on the table to go the first week. I would do motion to approve next week.
That makes sense. I yield to Lily.
Yes.
Just to add on to what Jamal was saying, we intended for, as the pact would have developed, for it to be somewhere to get advice, but also still at the discretion of the president, in the sense that you're choosing who you think is most qualified to provide you advice as president. And that this group, well, it's nice to have someone from every different thing. It's still on the duty of SA and exec to reach out to groups that are affected by certain issues. Like this past year, there's certain groups that were needed to be reached out to. While this PAC group is separate from that and is just sort of a general extra feedback to provide to SA, but not an actual position with SA. I don't know if that helps, like, the sort of broadness of it.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, I think that what we want to focus on and what we should consider is that the PAC shouldn't necessarily play a role of limiting people to the other responsibilities that they have as involved student leaders, right? Is that you want to aim to get people who are involved in the communities, and it's like if we run into a cycle where the people in the PAC are at the point playing a role as a chair or as a senator, that's what we don't want to happen. So the feedback group is I think is the best path forward. I would like to yield to Eden's dog.
To Eden's dog. Very funny.
I yield to Kamel. The 35 seconds.
Yeah, thank you, Jamal. I just wanted to tell anyone who's maybe reading this and a little confused that I'm happy to discuss it with them. There's some good changes and good ways to interpret the changes. So please reach out if you have any questions.
Great. Do you yield, Jamal?
Yep.
Great. Senator Tome.
I just wanted to yield to the people in the gallery, so I yield.
Great. Is there any other discussion on this bill? Is there a motion to table? Senator Tome.
Motion to table.
Is there a second, Senator Liu? Is there any discussion on the motion to table? Seeing none, we're going to move into a vote by unanimous consent. Does anyone dissent from the motion to table? Seeing no dissent, the motion to table passes. It will be on the agenda next week as, quote, motion to take from the table and approve Bill 2, and then the name of the bill. Just to clear that up. Having said that, is there a motion? Senator Sahin.
Yes. I motion to override the president's veto on Senate Resolution number 65, resolution to endorse and implement the recommendations of the 2019 to 2020 Commission to Review the Students Association.
Is there a second on that motion? Oh boy, like everyone. Senator Tome. All right, okay, this is where it gets confusing. Because I did this last time and we are talking about the same thing, this is where it gets confusing because we're doing it through Zoom, but I'm going to recuse myself and Isha will be acting speaker. Now, Isha, can you unmute yourself? Are you able to share your screen? And do you have this up?
Yeah, just give me a sec to share my.
Also, Typhoon, this means that you are acting deputy speaker. So, Isha, could you share the minute stock with Typhoon? Alternatively, this is being recorded and Isha can go back and take the minutes from that, but that's up to Isha if she wants to do that. Either way, Typhoon is still technically acting deputy speaker.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take some notes during now.
Is everyone okay with a 2-minute tech recess for Isha to get this up? We're doing it. 2-minute tech recess, 9:05. Please be back. Great.
Does anyone know how I can put my timer on the screen, on a Mac? Because Micah can do it, but I can't.
I think that's just an application or find a website. I can't really think of any other way. I think I'm
Maybe you could just use your phone.
Yeah, you could just use your phone and butt in if someone is out of time.
Can I use my gavel?
Absolutely.
I'll do that. Okay. Okay. Can you guys see this?
Yep. We can't see a speakers list if you have one up.
Is that better? Can you see that, or is that just on my screen?
Just on your screen right now.
I'm still allowed to be on the speakers list, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you see that? I can't see a speakers list.
Maybe you shared your specific there are different screens you can share, and I think you can even share your desktop as one of them, and maybe you want to share the whole desktop rather than just a few tabs. When you click share screen, did it show a bunch of different options for you to share?
Yeah. I'm just trying to get it all.
You can also just keep your own speakers list
the
and call on people. The same way you're doing it with the timer. You can write it down or something.
Okay.
My fault. My music's turned on.
No, it's fine.
Okay. It's not letting me share my desktop for some reason, so
just do
I'll try and I'll try and figure it out. But for now, I'll just share that. Okay, let me get my timer up. Okay, is everyone back?
Great, is everyone here? Isha, take it away.
Okay, so before we start, I know there's been a little bit of concern about the interpretation of the vote required to pass this motion. So I've discussed it with Micah and Kamel and Connor, and the interpretation I'm going to go with is that it says that a 2/3 majority of the Senate is required. So I'm going to interpret that as 2/3 of the senators who are present here and casting a vote. So people who aren't here won't be counted as part of the total count, and it'll just be 2/3 of all present and voting senators. So abstentions will still count, but absences won't. I just wanted to put that out there before we move into things. And okay, so are there any, does there anyone want to speak? Oh my gosh, I can't see the chat. Okay, Senator Sahin, is that your raised hand?
Yeah, so this was something that other senators and I spoke with, and I think that the overall concern was President Holtz didn't communicate his concerns or communicate them well enough that they were well understood by Micah or myself or the people on that commission. I know that a few other senators had some thoughts, but I just wanted to clarify why this was being motioned for. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak? President Holtz?
Thank you. So I don't know. So one, I do want to say, in regards to sharing my concerns and feedback, I'll continue to keep stressing that the 2 dates that I came forward to the Senate and when the recommendations were brought forward on the 20, I want to say on 24th was the day of February. The recommendations were brought forward was when I expressed my concerns. It was also constantly shared with leadership, the entire leadership. And it was also shared constantly with Dean Burns, and it was also shared constantly with Micah if Micah didn't understand that my concerns was that we gauge student feedback. Listen, I mean, here's the deal. I mean, I vetoed the bill primarily not because I disagree with all of the recommendations, right? I vetoed the bill primarily in the interest of students, that we can't keep playing this role where we want to get feedback after the fact, where we want to be able to go out, where we pass resolutions and the resolutions say, here's the recommendations, now go get feedback. To me, it's an insult. It comes off as wrong. It comes off as an opportunity where you can't engage students, because how can you go forward to students with recommendations that are already laid out before even trying to go and get feedback? And as I've shared before, is that the most prominent commissions and task force that we've led throughout the Students Association, they all took many efforts to go get feedback before final recommendations were made to pass on a resolution. So I just think it's an insult to students to go to them after the fact a resolution is passed. So me vetoing the resolution gives us another chance to go get feedback. Overall, generally, it don't care how many people may come to a town hall, how many people may be interested in attending a webinar or seeing the recommendations. The point is that we should have strived to try to get feedback prior to the resolution was passed. And I know that the language in the resolution says, okay, we'll go get feedback. And it comes off as this go get feedback after we've already passed this. So those are my reasons for vetoing the bill.
Okay,
and I think I think that just with any set of recommendations, that even though the recommendations aren't necessarily my concern is the engagement piece. And I'll love to see me personally, I would have loved to see forms of engagement prior to signing the bill. So I can't personally sign a bill without seeing that form of engagement. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Senator Tom, you raised your hand.
Yes, first of all, thank you, Jamal, for clarifying why you have chosen to veto that bill. As you have mentioned, you said that you talked several times to Dean Burns to SA leadership. I know that Micah has co-chaired that commission. I know that I think Connor also sat on it. So I'm just wondering, from the first time the resolutions or recommendations were presented to when you had to choose whether to veto it or not, a lot of time has elapsed from that first start date till you had to choose. So I'm just wondering, have you actually sat down and talked with them about how you can resolve the differences you saw? And if yes, what exactly have you, how exactly have you given them that feedback, and what have you done to resolve the issues you have had? Because I believe the issues you saw could have been easily resolvable if you sat down with them and talked with them about exactly what is going on instead of vetoing them. So that's what I'm just wondering.
No, I agree. It's your floor.
Senator Tom, do you yield to President Holtz?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I thank you. I 100% agree with that. It is something that could have been easily done, and it was something that I established prior to the bill was even passed. Prior to the resolution was even passed. So I did sit down. We were actually in a meeting together where I expressed the idea of going to get that feedback. And I'll be frank that what I really wanted them to really go out and get ultimate overall feedback on was the recommendation. One of the recommendations that involved the changing the voting style. And fair, I was making that point, but I do think overall with all of the recommendations that there should have been some sort of engagement prior to the fact. So yes, I did make those. I did have those conversations, sit down, and then the 2-week span before I sent out my veto, one was spring break and the other was a week dealing with coronavirus. So my apologies for not sending it out during spring break, and also stuff with the virus had got caught up and didn't get the opportunity to send it to senators, my veto to senators until the week before the meeting. So I yield.
Yeah, thank you so much for the clarification. I just so I remember that once Senate meeting you were absent, and when we asked the executive branch about how they felt about that recommendation, if I remember correctly, we've heard that you guys were actually in favor, just the voting stuff was kind of the iffy part. So I felt like it feels like to me there was a lot of miscommunication, and I personally feel like that veto really wasn't appropriate, just because I believe people put in a lot of hard work for those recommendations to happen. There was a long period of time where feedback could have been gathered, and I think if we communicated all clearly our concerns, we would have been able to gather feedback in times that you wouldn't have had to veto. So that's the reason why I would really like to override that veto. I'm so sorry. I yield, sorry.
Okay, thank you. So far, like on the gallery speakers list, we have Micah, Connor, and Anne Marie. So does anyone want to yield to them? Senator Tulloch.
Yeah, I just raised my hand so I could yield to people. I yield to Connor.
So I just wanted to clarify a few things, mostly in regards to Jamal's attempt to communicate with us. He did. He had voiced his problems with the implementation of a ranked choice voting system instead of approval voting at multiple points in the past year, especially during this semester. And we had a conversation about it. I think we had sort of resolved to find sort of a halfway point in which we would add into whatever document there is or whatever recommendations is just pending a search or feedbacks on the voting system to happen next year. But that was never implemented because in crass terms, shit hit the fan. So it sort of fell off the radar.
Okay, thank you. Do you yield?
Yes, I yield.
Okay, does anyone want to yield to the other people waiting to speak? Senator Tulloch.
Yeah, I'll yield to Anne Marie.
Okay, thank you. Cool. So I was on the committee. I couldn't make a few meetings because of the timing, but we did work really hard on the recommendations. However, I do know Jamal expressed his viewpoints on this like pretty early on. I remember giving up the update in the meeting. I frankly read off the phone what he had told me. So he has expressed this before. I don't think we're saying we're not in favor of what's here, but if you're gonna change something like voting, it does make sense to get some feedback from students if you're going to change something that drastic. So I think that was really, we weren't trying to discount anything. I mean, I was on the committee. They did really good things. So I want to reiterate that, things were, said and things were expressed early on. And we're not trying to discount anything, but it does make sense to get some input from students before you impact some things like broader scope things. Do you yield, Anne Marie? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks. So Micah's still waiting to speak, and so is Fred now. Does anyone want to yield to them? I'm gonna go with Senator Tulloch because I still see your hand raised on my screen.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any more time, but if so, then I yield to Fred.
Yeah, you've got time. Okay, Fred.
Yeah. So like I'm also like a member of the commission. So like what I feel like about all the recommendations that we wrote, like we put in a lot of effort, and especially like one of the problems we faced currently is the EVC stuff, which we resolved according to recommendation. But because it is itself a veto, so therefore like we had another like type of like jeopardy that we're in. But I do understand that like in regards to like changing the voting system, there definitely needs to be more like civilian feedbacks. And I think it's just like the logistics of like getting feedback. That is the only thing that we didn't achieve, which is probably one of the most important thing that we should have done. But like I think overall, what Micah, Connor, and all those people on the commission have written are like very, very carefully thought, and has like based on like when I was updating the election PBMs, it really fixed a lot of stuff. So I think like maybe just based on like what we have right now, I think like I'm not going to like express any opinions, but more like I really feel like we put in so much effort, so it needs to be like implemented in some ways, like maybe not right now, but maybe in the future. Yeah, I yield.
Okay, thank you. Senator Tulloch, your time is like almost up. So I'm gonna ask if there's anyone else who wants to speak, and just a reminder that Micah's still waiting to speak, and President Holtz is now on the speakers list also. Senator Sharath Chandra, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I yield to Micah.
Okay, so thanks. So I have a couple of points. First of all, I personally don't think that the amount of effort the commission put in is relevant. I don't think that that's something that matters. Even as someone who supports overriding the veto, I don't think that's something that matters. I do, however, think that there are some things that do lean towards being in favor of overriding the veto. First of all, I think that one of the things that we were discussing was whether Jamal informed us of his concerns, and I think that he did actually inform us of his concerns far in advance. Where I think the communication broke down is I definitely thought that they applied only to one particular recommendation, and as a result, we wrote into the resolution that's being discussed something that said that in order for that recommendation to be implemented, first you need to get student feedback. So we responded to that concern, and I did not ever hear anything about any other recommendations or the entire resolution needing more student feedback. I did, however, completely understand the argument that things that are as forward-facing as the voting system, which none of the other things are as forward-facing as the voting system in the recommendations, in my opinion, should merit some sort of student feedback. Although I will point out that the commission last year, when it looked to get rid of executive directors, did not receive student feedback from anyone outside of admin and existing SA people, and the people who are on the commission. I will also point out that there are a good amount of other things that have been supported, maybe not coming out of task forces and commissions like this, but there are lots of other things that have been supported that have been implemented without the existence of student feedback. One very strong example is that the bill that was discussed earlier tonight to establish the PAC, from my understanding, the people on that all were PAC members and members of SA. And that's a very common way that we do things, even though the PAC is supposed to be something that's pulling in representation from all these different bodies throughout the school. Only the people on PAC are the ones who are discussing with. And I think that that's a legitimate way to do the legislative process, and that's why we were elected to serve in SA. Basically, the student body chose us to make these decisions for them. Having said that, those are my opinions. I still fully support the resolution, and I would suggest voting in favor of overruling the veto. I yield back to Akshay.
Okay, actually, you have like a minute left. Do you want to yield to anyone else? President Holtz is first.
No, I actually want to say a few things. I pretty much agree with everything Micah said. The thing I wanted to point out is, assuming that everything except the change in voting procedure was going to proceed forward. Honestly, this might be something bad to say, but whatever, I'll say it. I genuinely don't think that most students care about what the difference between public and private campaigning or how the elections violation committee is formed. Like, honestly, if you care about that, you're running for office. I honestly don't know what feedback we would be able to get from students even if we tried. So I agree in theory that getting feedback from students is good. Just in this particular sense, I don't know if it would be beneficial. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Senator Rogers, you had your hand raised.
I'll yield to anybody who needs to speak. Anne-Marie, I see your hand is up. Connor, your hand is also still up here.
I think Jamal's
I never
been
put mine down.
Oh,
Sorry.
Jamal, so I yield to Jamal, the president. Sorry.
Thank you. I think a few points for me. I mean, one, in the idea of me, so I'm not vetoing the recommendations. Let's just make that clear. I'm vetoing the resolution that supports the recommendation. So those are two separate things. The idea of with that committee, the work that committee put in, I don't disregard it, even in my veto. I appreciate all of the work that the people in that committee did. They did work hard, and they did constantly bring updates to leadership, and everybody on that committee, I fully trust in doing good work, right? So the recommendations itself isn't what I'm vetoing, and me vetoing this resolution doesn't necessarily erase those recommendations. What I'm simply vetoing is a resolution that passes that says that we support these recommendations without going to get feedback, and the idea of everything not being forward facing, I disagree with that. I mean, I think that when you talk about and the idea of people not caring about campaigning and stuff like that, I mean, I disagree with that. Everything is forward facing when it comes to student government, and to compare a bill that speaks everything internally about SA to talk about stuff like how we run campaigns and how the voting system works, those are stuff that affects students who want to run for office, or students who take part in voting, or students, which is every student, right? And I think that when we need to really move away from this idea of going to get feedback after the fact that when it's already been done. And I don't discredit the work that the commission did. One thing that I wish that they did was go and get feedback before they put out final recommendations. Who cares how many people showed up or how many people care about the issue? The point is that you made an effort to go and engage. Listen, every time when we do work that is forward facing, we got to understand that there may only be one student who cares about it. There may be 6,000 students who care about it. The point is that we didn't make any effort to engage people externally at a broad level. And that's what I'm vetoing, the fact that this resolution passing, saying that the Senate support these recommendations. I support the recommendations. You can put that on record. Put it in the minutes. I support the recommendations. But what I don't support is passing recommendations without going to get the feedback first. That's what I don't support. Thank you, Senator Rogers, for your time.
Okay, thank you. Senator Rogers, you still have about like a minute and 45 seconds left. And I just want to say that Connor is on the, Connor's raised his hand as well.
All right, I yield to Connor. Connor, are you there?
Is Connor there?
I think he got murdered.
Connor said his screen's frozen and he can't talk. He just called me.
Okay.
I yield then.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We had, I believe, Senator Tome, you'd raised your hand to speak.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Hi, it's me again. So I really appreciate everyone giving their feedback and reiterating. I just wanted to say I do appreciate all the points that were made, but I feel like this veto is rather a result of miscommunication instead of not enough work or feedback being done. So this is why I'm personally in favor of overriding the veto. And I feel like we've been kind of talking in circles about what he said, what she said. So I'm motioning to close the speakers list.
Okay, there's a motion to close the speakers list. Are there any seconds? Okay, Senator Abdul Rahman. Sorry, I'm gonna clarify Micah for a quick second. Is there a vote required for this?
Yes, and you should also say who's currently on the speakers list so that people know, like, if there are people still on the speakers list, they would be allowed to talk in this motion. So, but first you have discussion on whether to close the speakers list, which is
Okay. Is there any discussion on whether we should, on the motion to close the speakers list? I don't see any new hands, but for the record, Senator Sahin is still on the speakers list, and Connor had been waiting to talk. Okay, so I'll call on Senator Sahin first.
You should do the vote first and then call
I
on
feel like
him.
we should do the vote.
To close the speakers list first and then call on him.
Okay, my bad,
So
sorry.
I suggest unanimous consent.
I will do unanimous consent. So we're going to vote on this by unanimous consent. Is there any dissent on the motion to close the speakers list? Okay, seeing none, the motion passes. And I'm going to call on Senator Sahin to speak.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring up one other thing. I really did like Micah's point about, you know, there's some legislation that we pass as student government that does not necessarily reach out to students. And the bill to establish a presidential advisory council and the executive branch is a great example of that. Jamal had brought up that it wasn't necessarily fair to compare this PAC bill to which he said was internal, but I would argue not. You know, the PAC bill is taking cross sections from the entire student body, and what if some executive boards didn't like how their representative was actually communicating? What if they didn't like the structure of how that was working and whether the overall hierarchy worked for them and they felt like their voice was being heard? So I just want to point out that there are cases where we still pass student government legislation, and
not cases on voting.
And okay, and then beyond that, I did want to make a motion on voting. So I'm just going to copy and paste it into the, or actually since, yeah, I'm just going to copy and paste it. So I motion to vote by secret ballot, where each senator shall cast their ballot by transmitting a private message in Zoom to Isha. The voting period shall last 4 minutes after the passage of this motion or until all present senators have voted, whichever occurs first. If one or more senators do not transmit their vote during this voting period, it will be considered an abstention. After this meeting, the meeting host and Isha will delete all records of these votes. And I'm making this motion based off of concerns that others had about voting publicly.
Point of personal inquiry. I am using a phone. Can I just text her? Like, you won't be able to delete my thing, but I'm just saying, put that as a private motion, like that exception. Please.
Okay, sure. So can I motion to vote by secret ballot, where each senator shall cast their ballot by transmitting a private message. Okay, I'll actually the what I phrased there, what I copied and pasted, didn't say private message in Zoom, so it can be a private message by text message.
Point of information, Typhoon.
Yeah.
I thought we had agreed that secret ballot couldn't have the name attached to the vote as per Robert's Rules of Order.
I also, we did have a conversation about this for speaker selection, but in this case, I'm just talking about how the voting process is going to occur, exactly like spelling it out. I don't see a problem. But.
Okay. Senator Sahin, do you yield?
I do, and I would ask if there is a second to the motion.
Yeah. So that motion to vote, and you guys can read what Typhoon has sent in the chat. Are there any seconds for this motion? Senator Abdulrahman, is your hand raised? Oh, Senator Rafiq also. Okay. So let me just check with Micah for a second. Sorry, my bad, guys. Okay, is there any discussion on this motion? Oh, Kamel, is your hand raised?
That was for earlier. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to talk?
I have a quick question. To vote, should we send, so it says private message. Would that be just like a private message to you on Zoom?
Yeah, you can do that if you want. Or if like you're on a phone as well, you can message me on Facebook or wherever you can reach me. And
yeah.
Is that okay?
Were you talking to me?
Okay.
Or,
no.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Connor, is your hand raised?
Yeah, sorry, I just got back. Are we doing secret ballot right now?
To compare type of rule. You said to compare what? To compare.
I just said I just got back right now. Are we doing secret ballot? Is that what was going on?
We're on the motion to vote by secret ballot. So we're in discussion on that motion right now, and then we'll vote on it.
I see. Okay, then I would like to speak later, but I yield or whatever. Sorry about that.
Okay, thanks. So we'll move into a vote by unanimous consent on this motion. Is there anyone who dissents from this motion? Okay, so the motion passes, and we'll return to. Do we return back to the speakers list? Micah, the people who are waiting to speak? Because I think President Holtz had his hand up.
Did he have his hand up before or after the speakers list was closed?
No, I don't have my hand up.
Then
Okay.
we're done.
We were waiting for Connor to speak, I believe, and then his computer crashed.
Oh, that is true. Connor.
Does anyone want to yield to Connor? Senator Rogers?
You to Connor.
Right. Thanks, guys. I didn't have much to say other than, well, in this, I don't have much to say anymore. I just was curious about how we were doing secret ballot. In the past, at least for speaker selection, I counted them and received them all. And I can do that again, but if we're going to have each do it, that's also fine. I yield.
Okay, thanks. I think that's everyone on the speakers list done. So, okay, I think now we move into the vote by secret ballot. So, like Typhoon said, like if you guys just read his message, so you guys have 4 minutes to message me your votes. And yeah, I'll be waiting.
It's like a yay or nay type thing.
Yeah, just message me like yes. And just a reminder, this is a vote on whether to override the veto or not. So
Okay.
just clarifying that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, we have 17 senators present, and I've only gotten 16. So if you guys haven't already, please make sure that either on this like private chat or like Facebook that you send me your vote. Okay, I think I got the last one.
I have a quick question. So if you're excluding absences from the vote count, could you not include that in the abstentions category? So usually votes are like 5 in favor, 4 against, and then like 3 abstentions, something like that. And abstentions usually count absences. Could you just like give the vote of all 4 categories?
Yeah, okay, I'll just count them first.
Okay.
Okay, sorry guys, I'm just gonna double check that I have everyone, even though like I've got a count, but I just want to make sure that I got everyone's correct. Okay, so we got 14 yeses, 3 noes, and 1 senator is absent, so that's the abstention. So this motion to override the veto passes.
Great. I'm going to return to being speaker now. Is there a motion to adjourn? Senator Tome,
Motion to adjourn.
is there a second on the motion? Oh boy, there are a lot of people. Senator Abdel Rahman, is there any dissent on the motion to adjourn? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for putting up with me, guys.
See
Sorry
you
for
next
the.
week. Good luck with elections, everyone.
Ciao.
Hang in there. Good luck with elections to those who are running and those who are just interested. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good week.